Hi, I'm Julie Johnson with Firebox Training. Today I'm going to show you how to create classes in Python. A class is simply your own custom data type, and then from there you can create your own objects that are based on those classes. So think of it like a template. For example, I can create a class called person. Maybe the person has a first name, a last name, and maybe some comments about the person. I can construct many different person objects. They might have different first names and last names and comments. So let's get started here. I'm going to create a class, as I mentioned, called person. So I just say class person. Now the naming convention here is to have your class begin with a capital letter. It's not a rule, it's just a convention. So whenever you create a class, there's a magic function, we call it a constructor, and it begins with a double score and then init and another double score. Whenever we declare functions, it starts with def. Okay, so here I have my init function, and it's always going to have at least one argument. And once again, the naming convention is to call it self. I can now put in the other attributes, and perhaps I initialize them. I can give them default values as well. For example, I can say fname equals, and then I'll put in here an empty string. lname equals another empty string, and maybe some comments equals yet another empty string. Put a colon there. Okay, so now inside here we're going to perform some initialization. Now this variable self refers to the object itself that we're creating. So here I need to say self.fname equals fname. So what we have in here is a local variable. It's getting passed in right here. Self.fname is referring to the attribute called fname that belongs to self. Just to make this very clear, we could do this, self.firstName. So what this means is my object has an attribute called firstName. So just for clarity's sake, I'm going to do it like that. Self.lastName equals lname. Self.comment equals comments. Now that we have our constructor, let's go ahead and create yet another function. We'll call this double underscore str double underscore. Now this is a magic function in that it is automatically called when we try to print out an object. Okay, so once again it takes as its argument self, and we're going to return. Let's print out self.firstName plus a literal space plus self.lastName and maybe a literal. We'll say comments equals, and then concatenate to that self.comment. Okay, now we can do this to make it look a little bit nicer. Just like that. Now it's complaining because we're continuing this line down here. What we can do to fix this is we can copy this and let's paste it, and let's make a quick little modification. You put a backslash to provide concatenation. There we go. Of course, you could place all of this code inside of a file and then just execute the file. If I'm in the idle environment, I would just hit my F5 key to execute the file. But here we have it. We're just going to use the command line option. So now let's construct a person object. I'll say P1 equals person. P1 is just a variable. Now inside of my person here, I'll put here John Doe. This is a person. Okay, now let's print out our person. Print P1. And now let's print out our person. So we'll say print put in parentheses P1, and here, see how it printed it out very nicely? Now if we want to set some of the attributes, we just use dot notation. Let's talk about encapsulation here in just a moment though. So if I say P1 dot first name equals Jane, and now I print out P1, you'll see here how this has changed. Now, we have a lack of encapsulation. Encapsulation simply means you're hiding data from the outside world. In other words, you create private variables, and then the only way to access that data from outside of this class is by providing public setter and getter methods. But that is beyond the scope of this discussion right now. We'll do another tutorial on that later. Well, I hope you got a lot out of this video tutorial. Stay tuned for more tutorials from us and visit our website at www.fireboxtraining.com.